Welcome to the Hopkins Center. Take a moment to silence your cell phone. Also, please locate the nearest fire exit. Thank you.
Please take your seats. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2018 Geisel School of Medicine Class Day. My name is Dwayne Compton, and as Dean of the Medical School, it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you today and to serve as moderator for the ceremony this morning. I want to start with just a few special welcomes and introductions. So first of all, welcome to our graduates who are on the cusp of receiving their MDs today, their families and friends who have journeyed to come here to be with them, our guests, and Geisel and Dartmouth College faculty and alumni that are here with us today. Let me make some special introductions as well as introduce the Geisel Senior Academic Leadership Group who are here on the stage, many of whom will be participating in the ceremony today. So I'd ask, as I mention your names, if each one of you would stand, please. Our Class Day speaker, Dr. George Tebow, President of the Josiah Macy Jr. Foundation. Dr. David Coates, Interim Provost of Dartmouth College and the Champion International Professor of Computer Science. Dr. Leslie Henderson, Geisel Dean of Faculty Affairs and Geisel Associate Dean for Diversity and Inclusion and Professor of Physiology and Neurobiology and of Biochemistry. Laurel Ritchie, Chairperson of the Dartmouth College Board of Trustees. Dr. Greg Ogrintz, Geisel Senior Associate Dean for Medical Education and Professor of Medicine and of the Dartmouth Institute and of Community and Family Medicine. Thank you each for participating in our ceremony today. I'd like to take a moment to give special thanks to our bagpipers. They bring a special feel to our ceremony each year. Dr. James Feeney and Dr. Travis Matheny were both alumni from the class of the year 2000, and Dr. Katie McInnes, class of 2011. And a special shout out to Emily Feeney, daughter of James. I would also like to express my respect and thanks to members of the faculty and the staff of Geisel who have retired during this past year. Their names are listed in the program, and we do so to specifically honor and recognize their contributions to our school over many, many years of service. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. George Tebow. Dr. Tebow earned his MD from Harvard Medical School, followed by internship and residency training in medicine and fellowship in cardiology at Massachusetts General Hospital, as well as the National Institute of Heart, Lung, and Blood. During that time, he was chief resident at MGH, and in his long career on the faculty at Harvard Medical School, he dedicated himself to undergraduate and graduate medical education, serving in many roles to seek to improve curricula and to ensure that the curriculum was appropriately aligned to train physicians and providing teams to best meet the needs of patient care. He is the inaugural holder of the Daniel Fetterman Professor of Medicine and Medical Education at Harvard Medical School and is now Fetterman Professor Emeritus. Over the past 10 years, he has been the president of the Josiah Macy Jr. Foundation, where he champions the importance of interdisciplinary, team-based approaches to medicine. We are privileged to have him here with us today, and please join me in welcoming him to Dartmouth.
Well, what a happy day, and thank you for that generous introduction. It's an honor to speak to you today. I know the program says it's Class Day, but this is your commencement. I know there's another event happening a week from now that I suspect many of you will not be at. So I declare this your commencement. And commencements are special times because they are both a celebration of the past, the accomplishments of graduates and families that have gotten them to this point, and a look to the future, the beginning or commencement of the journey that the graduates are about to embark upon. I'm also aware of the unique role of the speaker at this event. That is not the reason why you came. So it's my job to be brief, and I hope in the spirit of the occasion. Let me begin by congratulating the graduates of the class of 2018 of the Geisel School of Medicine on reaching this milestone in your process of becoming a doctor, a process that will go on for the rest of your careers. As will become clear to you, I believe there is no more noble calling, and I welcome you as a colleague in the profession. My own impressions of what it means to be a doctor were formed in the little town of Chittenango, New York, where my father, also George Edwin Tebow, but went by Ed, was a general practitioner. The Tebows were descendants of working-class immigrants from northern France who arrived in Canada in the 17th century. The Tebows lived for 6 generations in small French-Canadian towns along the St. Lawrence River before emigrating to New York State in the early 19th century. My father's father, Eugene, was a carpenter. My father's mother, Mary, was a school teacher from an Irish family in Syracuse. Eugene died young of cancer, and my father was brought up as an only child of a single working mom, somewhat unusual in the 1920s. My father was the first Tebow to graduate from college, and he then graduated from Syracuse University Medical School in 1937 in a class of 40 people. He chose a career pathway then that was quite common. After a rotating internship at Krauss-Irving Hospital in Syracuse, he sought a community in which he could open an office as a general practitioner. And during that year, he married my mother, Marion, also from Syracuse. And they chose to live in Chittenango, New York, a community of less than 2,000 people, 20 miles east of Syracuse, in the middle of dairy and vegetable farms. Other than his 2.5 years as a stateside flight surgeon in the Army during World War II, this is where he spent his entire career. I grew up with my father's patient office in the front 2 rooms of our home. Later in my childhood, he built a small office across the street, but it still felt like it was part of our home. During much of this time, my father was the only doctor for the town in the farms and hamlets in an area of about 15 miles around. There were afternoon and evening hours, 6 days a week. Waiting room was always full. In addition to providing what we call primary care today, though the term had not been invented then, Dad did minor surgical and orthopedic procedures in the office, assisted in surgery in the hospital, and delivered babies. Most of the babies in town were delivered by him. He also dispensed medicine from his office pharmacy in his overly full doctor's bag. Mornings were for visiting his hospitalized patients, for nursing home visits, and for house calls. House calls could actually happen any time of the day or night, depending on urgency. I have vivid memories of making house calls with him. I struggled to carry his bag when he would allow me to, and I glowed when I was called Little Doc. I appreciated but did not fully understand how special it was to enter people's home, and I felt the reverence that they felt for my dad. There was no Medicare or Medicaid then. Private health insurance was just beginning and was not the norm. Chittenango was a working-class town, and many people were poor. Dad never turned anyone away. Patients were charged on a sliding scale. In many, the scale was 0. The barter system still existed, and some patients paid their medical bills with services, house painting, repairs, or farm products, bushels of produce on the back porch. There were no answering service, and there was no buffer between my father and his patients. Our phone rang all times of the day and night. Middle-of-the-night calls usually meant a birth or a dying patient. That led to the family lore that these always came in threes. The GP in a small town plays many roles. Dad was school doctor, later chairman of the school board, and public health officer. He was also father confessor and counselor to many. Though I did not fully appreciate the scope of his involvement, I did begin to get an appreciation of the special privilege a physician has to be privy to the intimate details of a person's life. Marital discord, domestic violence, substance abuse, economic distress, teenage pregnancy were all part of his ministry. The private late-night visits and quiet conversations in the office or at home were handled with consummate skill and sensitivity, and he demonstrated that even in a small town, there can be secrets. He loved his work, and he loved his patients. It was a true calling for him. Dad died of a myocardial infarction at the age of 49 when I had just finished my first year of college. I will never forget the outpouring of emotion, both gratitude and a profound sense of loss on the part of the community. There is no doubt that he had provided the community with something very valuable: care, compassion, and sensitivity, as well as technical skill and knowledge. And he did that without today's scientific and technological advances, and without a supporting organizational structure. Now, my 50 years in medicine have been much different than my father's, and your journey in the upcoming decades promises to be different than mine. During my time in medicine, I have seen incredible advances in diagnosis and treatment of disease that would have been unimaginable to my father. And with the current pace of science and technology, you will see further advances that will dwarf those of the past few decades. I also have witnessed and participated in 3 important movements to improve health care that were unknown to my father. These movements are the development of the tools to measure and improve the quality and safety of care, the role of informatics in managing the potentially overwhelming amount of data in our health system today, and the importance of teamwork and interprofessional collaboration. You have been prepared to participate in and harness these movements so they can achieve the full potential benefit for your patients. But in the midst of all this good news, there is a darker side, the Dickinsonian, the best of times and the worst of times. There is concern that the increased size and complexity and corporatization of medicine are causing us to lose our heart and perhaps our soul. There are concerns that we've lost my father's sense of medicine as a calling and a public service, and that we will never again have the level of public trust that he earned. The evidence for this worst of times is in many places. Public opinion polls show declining confidence in the medical profession. Patient stories attest to poor communication and lack of empathy in their medical encounters. Statistics show increasing disparities in access to care and health outcomes related to ethnicity and zip codes, and alarming increases in depression, burnout, and suicide among physicians and other healthcare providers. All these suggest that the heart has gone out of medicine, and with that, the meaningfulness of our work. Is this an inevitable trade-off? That in order to get all of the advances of the past 50 years, we must give up the heart and the purpose that were so central to medicine in my father's time? Must we conclude that that was just old-fashioned? I think not. The changes that I have experienced in medicine and which you will experience in medicine can and must be embraced and mastered for the good of our patients and the health of the public. But with that embracing of change, we must hold to, or perhaps return to, certain constants. These constants are what we call professionalism. They represent our social contract and are embodied in oaths that we take when we enter the profession, which you will do later this morning. The oaths go back to Hippocrates in the 5th century BC and have been expressed in different ways in the centuries, and while some of the wording of past oaths has become dated with changing mores and societal expectations, there are common features of all of the oaths that define our professional responsibility. And these are, first, we must put the needs of our patients and the public over our own. This speaks to altruism and empathy. Second, we are responsible for a specialized body of knowledge that we must master, improve upon, and pass on to the next generation. This speaks to competence, fact-based improvement, and generativity as our professional responsibility. Remember, the Greek word for doctor means teacher. Third, in exchange for doing all these things, society confers special status on us, and patients trust us in their most vulnerable moments and with their most precious secrets. But we must earn that trust in how we behave, individually and collectively. You, the class of 2018, wrote a beautiful mission statement when you embarked on your journey at Geisel, and it was shared with me, in which you offered, quote, your energy, commitment, and passion to, quote, improve the lives that we are so fortunate to touch. You further resolve to champion the needs of our patients, to design better systems, to realize the human rights to health. And you pledged to promote health and wellness with empathy, optimism, and soul. So you do know the answer. Can we enhance and benefit from all the advances in modern medicine and still retain the heart of my father's small-town practice of yesteryear? The answer is resoundingly yes, if we daily remind ourselves of our oath, and every day renew our commitment to professionalism and to our social contract. You knew that when you entered medical school, and I hope and believe that you still know that now. Because of the outstanding learning experiences you have knowledge and skills now you did not have then, but you still have the same values. Your generation of physicians, working with your colleagues in the other health professions, will be the one to show us that we have not lost our heart. Humanism and science are not in opposition, but actually reinforce one another in enabling you to fulfill your oath, your mission, your professional responsibility. That task is not easy, but the rewards are great. You have the opportunity to create a new paradigm that will combine the best of our science and technology with the humanism, empathy, and teamwork that our patients want and need. You have been well prepared for this task, and I am optimistic that you will go forward and, to use your words, with energy, commitment, and compassion. Congratulations and Godspeed on your journey. The best is yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you, George, for those inspiring comments. I would now like to ask Dr. Matthew Duncan to come to the podium and introduce our medical student speaker.
Where is Mike? There we are. All right. So referring to Mike as the Class Day student speaker feels like a bit of a misnomer, as Mike is often described by his classmates and probably thought by some of the faculty and hospital staff as the student who already has his MD. He probably doesn't even technically need to be here. This is just a service to everybody else, right? Now, part of the reason for this understandable confusion is that even before medical school, Mike was a pararescueman in the Air Force Special Operations Command, and he's a critical care flight paramedic, a tactical medicine instructor, and has continued to work as a paramedic and a ski patroller throughout medical school. And not only that, but Mike was named as the Air Force Special Operations Command Outstanding Airman of the Year and Pararescueman of the Year in 2009, all before arriving here. Pararescuemen, also known as parajumpers or PJs, as they're sometimes called, are service members who are tasked with recovery and medical treatment of personnel in humanitarian and combat environments. And as I thought about this description and Mike, the image floated through my mind that Mike probably could have made it through medical school never getting out of his PJs. Sometimes seem to make it look that easy, but that's not really Mike's way. Instead of coasting through on his prior knowledge, these experiences or accolades, Mike has always thrown himself right into the middle of things, both in medical school and outside the classroom. And so in addition to being highly respected and incredibly well-liked among his peers in the faculty, Mike's an excellent student, a prodigious scholar, and a giver of himself for the benefit of others. And the creed of the PJs seemed to strike me as fitting for Mike. This is their creed. It is my duty as a pararescueman to save life and to aid the injured. I'll be prepared at all times to perform my assigned duties quickly and efficiently, placing these duties before personal desires and comforts. These things I do that others may live. So I think Mike truly embodies duty, readiness, efficiency, and sacrifice, and it's no wonder that he's been chosen by his peers as the class speaker. So help me welcome Michael J. Loria.
Thank you very much, Dr. Duncan. And for the record, that's one of the reasons I came into medicine, because scrubs are basically like PJs. So Dr. Tebow's inspiring talk is going to be a tough act to follow, but I'll give it a shot, because I think we have a problem with truth in medicine, and I think there's something that we can do about it. And I mean, it's a funny thing, truth. I mean, it's easy for us to talk about, but it's far more difficult to actually pin down and find absolutely in practice. Yet it's really, really important, right? Transparency and trust, logic and science, behavior, thought, they're all predicated on knowing what's true, what's real. So take this example, for instance. What are the critical elements to include in a commencement address? Well, if I apply my evidence-based principles, I set out on a journey to the end of the internet to find that answer. And in a completely random, not so controlled, clearly retrospective, blatantly unsystematic review of graduation YouTube videos, I discovered the truth. And mind you, all of these elements rise to the level of statistical significance that I haphazardly happened to assign last night at 11 o'clock in the evening. Number one, expressing thanks to family, friends, and faculty. You guys are amazing. We love you. Without everything that you have done for us, we wouldn't be here today. With all of your tutelage and help, it would have been impossible. So thanks a million. Number two, gratuitous compliments to the school and recounting the long list of our class's accolades. So this place is awesome. We all love it. You guys are amazing. It's like sitting next to Mother Teresa and Alfred Nobel over here. I love you guys. Number three, jokes about how poor we are. Insert ramen joke here. Insert joke about crushing debt there. Bada bing, check. Okay. Inside jokes about faculty members and nerdy medical stuff, which our family and friends mostly don't understand and kind of look at each other awkwardly. So there we were in the anatomy lab, right? And Swenson comes in and he goes, "That's not an axon, that's a dendrite." Okay, check. And this is my favorite one. So, advice culminating in some pithy statement or declaration, right? It's kind of funny for a couple reasons, because number one, any student speaker who gets up there has been a doctor for, I don't know, like negative 60 minutes. And two, look at this outfit. This is ridiculous. I mean, seriously, would you take it? So, let's say you come into my office, and I'm dressed like this. And I say, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith. There's something off with your cholesterol." You'd be like, "Well, thanks. There's something off with your fashion sense, Galileo." I mean, really, there's only like 3 reasons why someone would dress up like a 15th century Venetian, right? You're traveling through time. You like the Renaissance fair way too much. Or you might have some issues going on. You need to make an appointment with Dr. Duncan. Either way, you probably wouldn't take the advice from me if I was dressed like this. Anyway, I digress. So there you have it. That is the evidence-based, undeniable truth about what makes a good commencement address. But returning to the point at hand about truth in medicine, and what we as a class can do about it, I think there's several things. So, number one, examining truth in the past. Be careful about reviewing the past and the history of modern medicine, because unfortunately, the history of medicine is rife with half-truths and misleading information, right? Take the case of our beloved Ignaz Semmelweis, for example. Semmelweis was a medical student in 1847 and discovered that lethal, very deadly maternal infections could be drastically cut by the use of hand disinfection using this nasty chlorinated lime solution. And his idea, by all accounts, worked. It worked really well. But sadly, Semmelweis's practice was largely rejected and didn't gain acceptance for a while until after he died. It's often thought that this is because his observations conflicted with established scientific and medical opinions at the time, and some doctors were offended at the suggestion that they should wash their hands. There's an alternate explanation to this phenomenon. Semmelweis was a jerk. Seriously, there's evidence that suggests Semmelweis actually berated his colleagues, insulted trainees, and incredulously attacked any critic of his observations. I mean, can you imagine being in the ward and being on rounds and some student comes around the corner and they're like, 9, stop that! Wash your hands! You're an idiot! You're stupid! You're terrible nurse, doctor! It's ridiculous. He once responded to an academic question with an ad hominem attack, saying, I declare before God and the world that you, sir, are a murderer. Nice guy, huh? Eventually, his friends, people that actually believed in his cause, abandoned him. His behavior became so erratic that he was eventually committed to an asylum, harassed the guards at the asylum, was subsequently beaten, and then ironically died of wound infections from said beatings. Really sad. So this paragon of medical student insight was, in truth, a pariah because of his abhorrent behavior. His poor treatment of people and interpersonal missteps may have cost lives, because no one took up this whole hand-washing thing, by obscuring the integrity of his scientific findings and eclipsing the truth. Number 2, truth in the present. So Carl Sagan is a renowned astrophysicist and astrobiologist, and he once said, science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of skeptically interrogating with a fine understanding of human fallibility what's true. Sagan believed that we need to be skeptical of those in authority and was presented, and any information that's presented to us in a way of this is the way we've always done it. And in medicine, a physician hero of mine by the name of Cliff Fried calls this dogmalysis. So dogma being something held as an established opinion, a point of view or a tenet put forth with authority and without adequate grounds. And lysis refers to the process of disintegration or dissolution. So we should systematically endeavor to break down that existing dogma. And number 3, truth in the future. So change is difficult, and altering practice to reflect the truth will be really challenging. And as Semmelweis's experience shows us, how you reveal the truth and implement these changes is just as important as what you're trying to do. So with a healthy dose of humility and clear understanding of our naivete, I think we should trust but verify. Trust that our friends, our colleagues, and our superiors are doing what they think is best and that they have an experience and insight that we completely lack. However, it's our duty to confirm the veracity of what we're told, the accuracy of the information that we find, and within ourselves, our intentions, and make sure that they're honorable. And oh, by the way, just be nice. So, most importantly, I think that this quest for truth is important for one additional reason, and that is, its discovery relies on an unwavering intellectual curiosity. Is this really the best way of doing things? I mean, can we find an alternate solution? Can we find a more efficient, cheaper solution that would work just as well? Asking those questions is important, and I think this ethos can carry us through some of the tough times to come, provide us with a bearing through tumultuous waters ahead, allow us to crush residency and really do amazing things in the future. So stay curious, my friends. Congratulations to this amazing class. God bless America, and will the force be with us all.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to have to do a little editing on the side for my talk based on your comment. Nothing like up-to-date changes. So we will now confer graduate hoods and degrees onto our MD candidates. The hood that we wear around our necks is an outward signature of the degree of each student. So the velvet part signifies the degree earned, and in this case it is green to signify the MD degree. The satin lining reflects the school conferring the degree, and in this case that is also green, reflecting Dartmouth. So earlier this year, the graduating class selected 2 distinguished members of our faculty as recipients of the Basic Science and the Clinical Science Teaching Awards. The recipients of these awards also have the honor of hooding the MD candidates at today's ceremony. And these 2 individuals are Dr. Larry Myers, Associate Professor of Medical Education and of Biochemistry and Cell Biology, and Dr. Adam Weinstein, Associate Professor of Pediatrics. Unfortunately, Dr. Myers is unable to be with us today, so Dr. Weinstein will be hooding all of our graduates. Dr. Greg Ogrens will read the names of each student to come forward and receive their hood and their diploma.
Let me extend my welcome and good morning to the graduates and to family and friends who are here with us. I'll now ask our graduates and candidates to come forward to the platform. Max Bowman. Jack Aguilar. Andres Aguilera Fish. Oliver Barniak. Alex C. Bender. Amy R. Bestick. Tiffany Brazil. Caledonia Buckheit. Diana A. Chernikova. Stacy Chu. Theodore B. Curran. Jay Dang. Peace Nena Ina. Lillian Rebecca Ernst. Jennifer Fleischer. Ayatami Ivan Frigini. Andrea Gero. Mina Gabriel. Rafaela C. Gold. Madeline Griswold Half. Gregory S. Hansen. Marva Hill Pierre-Louis. Andrew Huang. Oluyinka Igbaraise. Andrea Jarasova. Tara Kedia. Eskar Kusima. Michael J. Laria. Sean Lee. Sing Lee. Young Lee. Tinja Rosalinda Wong Lorigiano. John Evald Mascari. Rebecca Masutani. Lars Matkin. Gregory L. McDonough. Michelle Antoinette McPherson. Philip Montana. Alana Catherine Maria O'Brien. Timothy Raymond O'Dowd. Ryan Stephen Oliveria. Alexander Orphanos. Nirali Patel. Eliza Pope Collins. Jose Luis Porras, Jr. David Chen. Rajiv S. Raghavan. Sumita Raman. Devin Scott Reed. Cassandra Preti Moon Rendon. Natalie Yenza Ring. Catherine Sanders. Lauren Sattler. Matthew Sattler. Elizabeth Schenk. Julia Siegel. Yuna Lee Sinsky. Vanessa Sutanto. Ace St. John. Chad Sudoko. Colin Tassi. Poi Teprang Sirikun. Robert A. Tokens. Mintu Tran. Kanak Verma. Thomas A. Wilcoxon. Bianca M. Williams. Sherry Lily Wu. John Shea. Jenny Zane. Hui Li Zhu. Please join me in a final round of applause for all of our graduates.
It's now my pleasure to award the William Melon Chamberlain Memorial Prize and Dean's Medal. This award is presented to the member of the graduating class who, in the opinion of the faculty, has the best overall record of academic achievement at the Geisel School of Medicine. This year, the recipient of the award, Sean Lee. Sean is graduating with both MD and MBA degrees, has been an outstanding medical student, excelling in both the classroom and clinical setting. Sean has been described by faculty as having a disarming demeanor, a remarkable thirst for knowledge, and he has proven himself as a leader of a multidisciplinary team. Sean is a Rolf Seibertson Scholar, and because of his academic achievement, leadership potential, citizenship, service, and high level of professionalism, he was elected to the Alpha Omega Alpha, the Medical Honor Society. While earning his MBA degree at Tuck Business School, Sean won the Dartmouth Entrepreneurship Network The Pitch People's Choice Award, as well as the prestigious Maynard Summer Startup Award. In addition to the hard work that garnered him those achievements, he was involved in several research projects with faculty in cardiology, in GI and otolaryngology, and medical education that resulted in authorships of a book chapter and 7 publications, 5 of which he is first author. But wait, there's more. To top this off, it is important to mention his service to the community. So Sean has served as a board member for the Good Neighbor Clinic and is the co-founder of a company in Hanover named Corvitalis, is that right? Corvitalis, whose mission is to facilitate the care of chronic disease patients at home, for which he was awarded a National Science Foundation I-Corps site grant. So in the next few weeks, Sean will begin his residency in internal medicine at the Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. So Sean, congratulations. Thank you for everything you've done, and join me in congratulating Sean. Thank you so much. Really well done. I would now like to ask Dr. Ogrens to present the Good Physician Award.
So I have the honor of presenting the Good Physician Award. This is an award established through the generosity of anonymous faculty members, and the recipient is chosen by the class. One of the highest honors you can get in medicine is to be recognized by your peers and colleagues. So members of the class are asked to select the person who best exemplifies the personal and intangible qualities of the good physician. They're asked to consider these traits, emphasizing the combination of scientific and professional knowledge with qualities of general wisdom, caring, of empathy, and of devotion to the wellness and welfare of others that defines the highest level of the profession of medicine. The class of 2018 recipient is Madeline Half.
I would now like to invite Dr. Roshini Pinto-Powell to the podium to lead us in reciting the Hippocratic Oath.
On behalf of the faculty on the stage, those that could not be here today, and all the staff at Geisel, I extend our heartiest congratulations to our newly minted graduates, class of 2018. In many ways, the most significant and memorable event today for our medical students is the recitation of the Hippocratic Oath for the first time. As our class speaker, Dr. Tebow, said, although the words might be dated, at the very core, the Hippocratic Oath is what our profession means to us. And when technology and our medicines fail, and they will, so it's not if they fail, but when they fail, being there for your patients is what you'll be called to do. In our profession, it is a custom established more than 2,000 years ago that no one may be admitted to its honors who has not first expressly taken upon herself or himself its obligations. So on behalf of our elders, I call upon our graduates to take, as we have taken before you, the oath which bears the name of Hippocrates. We can still find no nobler sentiments than the most ancient in which to hand down the traditions of our calling. I invite all the physicians in the audience today to stand and to join our graduates in reciting the oath. The oath is printed in your program. I do solemnly swear, by whatever I hold most sacred, that I will be loyal to the profession of medicine and just and generous to its members, that the regimen I adopt shall be for the benefit of my patients according to my ability and judgment, and not for their hurt or for any wrong, that I will lead my life and practice my art in uprightness and honor, that into whatsoever house I shall enter, it shall be for the good of the sick, to the utmost of my power, holding myself far aloof from wrong, from corruption, from the tempting of others to vice, that I will exercise my art solely for the care of my patients, and will give no drug, perform no operation for a harmful intent, even if solicited, far less suggested, that whatsoever I shall see or hear of the lives of my patients, which is not fitting to be spoken, I will keep inviolably secret. These things do I swear, and now, if I will be true to this, may prosperity and good repute be forever mine. The opposite, if I shall prove myself forsworn. Congratulations, class of 2018.
Today marks two occasions equally. One is your last day as a medical student. The second is the first day as an alumnus. So I would like to now invite to the podium Dr. Vincent Pellegrini, class of 1979, who will now officially welcome you to part of the Geisel alumni.
Thank you, Dwayne. Congratulations, doctors. It is a real privilege for me to visit with you today and welcome you to the ranks of alumni. I will speak briefly with you about what I believe, I hope you will remember. But as a remembrance, I also want to pass forward to you what was said to me nearly 40 years ago, sitting in that seat, that to this day I still remember. And in emphasizing to us the importance of family, our speaker that day mentioned to us there would be very few of you who will leave the profession of medicine with an operation or a diagnosis or a disease bearing your name. But when each of you leave this earth, it is quite likely that every one of you will have children that you will leave behind bearing your name. His intent was for us to remember the human side of medicine and your life. So I pass that forward to you, and my remarks are hopefully apart as memorable, but what I'd like to talk with you about is two things: privilege and gratitude. Now, privilege in our society has taken on a bit of a challenged connotation, and you may quickly react and say, not my intention, and in fact, not my motivation for privilege. But bear with me for one moment, please, and let me explain. I don't refer to financial or economic privilege. This used to be so. As has already been mentioned today, many of you have education loans and debt that are not trivial. And while you'll not likely ever want for anything material that you'll need in your lives, you do feel financial pressures today, not privilege at this moment. I also do not refer to social status or station when I talk about privilege, and while this also used to be true, with medicine recognized and respected as one of the learned professions, physicians have historically been held in high esteem. Today, unfortunately, this is also less evident as a result of some examples of poor behavior by physicians, such as inappropriate drug prescribing, child abuse and sex offenders, and other abuses of the respected station afforded to physicians. So you may understandably and consequently reject your characterization as being privileged. Perhaps especially you're the first physician in your family and this day is especially meaningful to you. Or perhaps you come from a family of modest means or an underrepresented minority. None of that feels very privileged, but I'm not referring to that either. I do, however, refer to the privileged window into the human condition that is afforded to you by virtue of your medical degree and role as a member of a healing profession. From here on in, you'll be invited to share in some of the most personal human feelings and decisions that are known to us. Decisions of life and death, people deciding to pursue treatment for a cancer diagnosis or not. Decisions of quality of life, to pursue elective operation or other risky things to improve life. Emotional and family decisions about children or parents, caretaking or dependency. You'll now be privileged to have that window into humanity, most strikingly into the lives of those who just moments prior to meeting you were mere strangers. Such is the remarkable privilege that you'll inherit today. Regardless of whether you came into this auditorium this morning feeling privileged or not, or having come from a background of wealth and prosperity or hardship and suffering. You're all now quite privileged into a very humbling and remarkable thing. And perhaps more importantly, and be ever aware that you'll be perceived by many to be privileged. And now gratitude. Because of this privilege bestowed upon you today, you have every reason to be appreciative and grateful for the gift of this window into the human condition. For this, each of you owes something to someone, or, as more likely the case, to many. Gratitude is a very honorable and humbling trait, and one which we should all aspire to exhibit. To our families, for their support, emotional, financial, and otherwise. To our teachers and mentors, for their wisdom, encouragement, and example. To our school, and now what alumni welcome would not mention your school and the fact that your donation envelope will be in your Hinman box as soon as you return back. And for the opportunity that this school provided to you. To our patients, for their confidence, their trust, and belief in us. To our peers, for their collegiality and shared commitment. And I could go on and on and on. That said, gratitude comes with other additional benefits to those who project it. Research has shown that those who feel and exhibit gratitude feel less entitled, have greater inner peace and resilience, project a sense of cooperation and collegiality around them, and generally feel more fulfilled in their lives. And so what better reason to feel and exhibit gratitude? And so as you leave this auditorium, be conscious of the great privilege that is bestowed upon you today as physicians, and be grateful that you've been given the opportunity to earn it. My favorite medical quote is from Sir William Osler. He's been credited with saying that the practice of medicine is an art, not a trade, a calling, not a business, a calling in which your heart will be exercised equally with your head. Starting today, you will live a privileged existence. Give back in gratitude every chance that you have, and pay it forward as well to those who will follow in your footsteps. As a small token from the alumni, you'll receive the Wisdom Book at your exit today. It'll be presented by some familiar faces: Joe O'Donnell, Dan Lucy, and Sarah Johansson. Read it, learn from it, cherish it. Congratulations, Geisel class of 2018. Do good work, be fulfilled, make us proud.
Thank you, Vince. First, one announcement. Following the ceremony, there is a reception in Alumni Hall, which is out this doorway to your right, and then up the staircase at the end of the glass hallway. This room will remain open, so if people wish to come back and take photos with the flowers in the backdrop, that's certainly open to you, but just so you know, we'll be moving towards the reception immediately following. So, Geisel class of 2018, congratulations. I know I stand between you and the reception and your families, and but I've got a few last remarks to make. And so, before I start, I think we have to start by acknowledging your family and your friends, many of whom are here today, who have stood by you and been behind you this whole path. Medical school is a very intense experience, and without their love and support, I don't know that it's possible to complete. So I think we owe them a round of applause for their support. I'd also like to thank Dr. Tebow again for joining us today and providing such an inspiring talk about professionalism and how important that is, and the important role that will play in your future as you go forward. And lastly, I want to thank the staff from Student Services, the staff from the Office of Medical Education and from the Development Office, who work tirelessly, oftentimes behind the scenes, to support you through your education, and also who put together our ceremony, and including the white coat ceremony. All the ceremonies that you've been part of and experienced have gone on because of the staff. So thank you. So, class of 2018, I have the distinct honor to provide your last lecture at Geisel. And what I'd like to do is start with a brief look backwards and tell you were selected from over 6,000 applicants. And you are an extremely interesting mix of students and artists, entrepreneurs, scientists, veterans, and you came here from states all across the U.S. and from many different countries with a whole wide range of different educational backgrounds and life experiences. And I want you to think back to that first week of orientation. If you remember doing the ropes course and Mount Musalak, do you remember these? Kind of seems like yesterday. And I wonder if you remember that first day of orientation when you met your classmates for the first time. And there was a discussion about some of your experiences and achievements prior to coming to Geisel. And I wonder for some of you if you weren't thinking, how did I get into this group with all these interesting people? So let's recap what's happened a little bit since that time of orientation. So by my calculation, you've completed over 6,000 didactic hours in the classroom, and actually that may be less if you listen to the audio recordings on double speed, but that's your call. Do you recall the relentless cadence of quizzes in first year and second year? Do you recall your thoughts on the day of white coat ceremony? You recall the anatomy lab and that bond that you had with your first patient, the memorial ceremony where you honored their contribution to your medical education, the transition ceremony and your anticipation to start clerkships. Do you recall your first exam room experience with your preceptor at your side? And maybe that first time you entered an exam room without a preceptor? Do you recall assisting in a birth, suturing a wound, performing blood draws, lumbar punctures, vaccinations? Do you recall that maybe somewhere during third year your suitcase seemed to become your best friend? The first physical exam in history you performed on a patient and your realization at that time that you were just given private information? Do you recall when you had to call a patient at home or talk to a patient's family, giving good news or giving bad news? You recall the times when you provided comfort to a patient during a procedure and the very real power of just holding someone's hand? And you recall the excitement on match day, which was not too long ago? And most importantly, I would ask that you recall the people that were there at the time, in the foreground, in the background, your classmates, your family, the faculty, the staff, and the patients. So one of my favorite movies is called Good Will Hunting. It's kind of dated now, but I hope some of you have seen this and understand this reference. I got to be careful to check my references so that they're not out of date. But I'm particularly fond of one scene where the character played by Robin Williams reflects on the intimacy of his relationship with his spouse. And he makes the following statement: "It's the little idiosyncrasies that only I knew about." So I depart into pop culture just for a moment to raise a point, and that point is that my intent to kind of walk you through the past few years of your medical education and the different milestones that were there was not really to make a checklist of those events. No, my intent was actually to make you recall and think about, for each one of you, what were those little idiosyncrasies that happened during your education? And it's those idiosyncrasies, those personal experiences that you went through as you were being trained. Each and every one of them is what frames your memories and the impact of this experience on you that will last throughout your professional life. What's remarkable to me is how much you've given of yourselves during the past few years. You've been involved in so many things, and I made a list. It's not a complete list, so if something doesn't show up, please don't come tell me that I missed something. But the Good Neighbor Clinic, Mascoma Clinic, Latino Medical Student Association, WISE, Migrant Health, Asian Pacific American Medical Student Association, QMD, Claremont Soup Kitchen, Upper Valley Haven, Upper Valley Brain Bee, Moms in Recovery, Dartmouth Ears, Art for Kids, Rural Health Scholars, Urban Health Scholars, Physicians for Human Rights, Unite for Sight. Many of you were Albert Schweitzer Fellows who created community outreach projects. Many of you completed dual degree programs. You earned fellowships and awards from the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, Close Concerns, U.S. Public Health Service, Dartmouth Martin Luther King Social Justice, Center for Leadership, the Geisel's John Strobane Medal, and Thayer's Engineering and Service to Humanity Award. And I know at least one of you spent your free time cuddling babies at Chad as part of the neonatal abstinence program. And I completely lost count of how many of you just got married along the way. Some of it was just in the past couple of weeks. So I stand here today as the representative of the Geisel faculty and staff, and speaking on their behalf, I say that we're incredibly proud of what you have accomplished and for being such a rich part of our community. At the time that we were guiding your transformation from an aspiring applicant into a practicing physician, you've been impacting on our lives and the lives of the people throughout this community and throughout the United States and the globe. And for that, I thank you and I admire you. But let's look forward. Let's start looking forward. And I've been thinking deeply about my message for you today. And after all, this is your last lecture at Geisel, and I feel like I need to make it a good one. There's no Echo 360, so something's got to be said that sticks in your mind about this. The next step that you take, both literally and metaphorically, will be your first steps into the world as a physician. You are holding your diplomas, after all. And you're stepping into a very interesting world, very interesting indeed. And you heard a little bit about this in Dr. Tebow's talk, and I think Mike touched on this a little bit. I'm going to quote Rex Tillerson in his commencement speech that he gave at the Virginia Military Institute just a month ago. He said, "We are experiencing," and I quote, "a crisis of ethics and integrity in our society and among its leaders," end quote. I'm not kidding. The premise of his commencement address was the ethical decay of our society. I'm wondering about this. So I did a Google search the other day, and I used two keywords. I used healthcare and broken. And that search returned 81 million hits. And that, to me, was a bit demoralizing, but I have to say it wasn't entirely fruitless, because I did find a website called brokenhealthcare.org, which has actually got some really interesting stuff on it that I'm going to read in the future. And the last thing I'll add to this mix is the very, very public condemnation, and in fact, even vilification of legislative attempts through the Accountable Care Act to improve our healthcare system and to increase access to quality health care for the citizens of this country. That is what's happening in the external environment right now, and these are really interesting times. And I have to admit to you, it is difficult to resist the intoxicating nature of those ideas to discuss here today. It's just really hard to resist, especially with how they get amplified in the 24-hour news cycles and in the web platforms that show up whether you tune in or not. They're showing up in our lives. But my goal for today is not, and actually should not be, to add yet another voice to that already frenzied maelstrom. You don't need to hear more of that. Rather, my inspiration arises not from those external sources, but from you. And I'll explain. So I recently had the pleasure of reading the stories that some of you wrote to provide your wisdom onto the rising third-year class. And in those stories, I found inspiration for our future. You wrote about kindness, you wrote about perspective, you wrote about connecting with your patients, you wrote about learning lessons in human dignity and decency from when you have interactions with patients who are facing difficult circumstances. So let me read a few examples. From Tito. Be careful with comparing yourself to others. Social media tends to be a person's highlight reel. Ask yourself daily whether you were better than yesterday. If the answer is yes, then be happy and don't worry about what everyone else is doing. From Maddie. There's Maddie. You can't always be right, but you can always be kind. Always act with integrity. Remember, you have the privilege to be in the room during people's most trying moments. If you are kind and act with integrity, you help. From Jennifer. And apologies for my poetic timing. It's not always that good. Sometimes you need to remember what it is you are trying to do, to focus on the journey and bringing your best you. From Chinwei, no one is there to give you the answers, and no one will ever have the correct answer for you. You must decide for yourself who you are in these situations and what the best next steps will be. From Caledonia, pretty much everyone wakes up every day wanting to do their best. And finally, from Oliver, give a crap every day with every patient. So why do I, and you weren't expecting to be called out by name today, I'm sure, but why do I find inspiration in these words? So they reveal to me that you know that the world is uncertain and that you will face ambiguity, and that you understand that the path to choose is that it's a path that's guided by your core values of altruism and selflessness. For me, one of the most disturbing trends of recent times is the absolute certainty with which people express their views, whatever those views are, and the disinterest that people show in learning about other viewpoints. And oftentimes that disinterest actually steps over into complete dismissiveness. It's that certainty that I believe lies at the root of the so-called crisis of ethics and integrity in our society. And it is that certainty that drives much of the divisiveness that exists in our culture right now. Certainty closes minds to new ideas, and certainty blocks discourse. And a future created by citizens of certainty is something that looks rather challenging to me. But the words I just read to you, your very words, don't convey to me certainty. They convey messages of humility and kindness and commitment. They convey a perspective that the world we live in has ambiguity and that we need to act with integrity and with purpose. Above all, the words convey a sense that we can learn from one another. Each of you arrived at Geisel as an extraordinary individual, exceptionally intelligent, compassionate, a driving desire to help others, and lots of very interesting and diverse life experiences. What we have done through our curriculum and co-curricular activities is to channel your innate characteristics into the practice of medicine. We've worked hard to provide the environment that pushes and nurtures your growth, both intellectually and emotionally, and to give your innate sense of compassion and altruism a way to express itself through medicine. For your part, you've acted as veritable sponges. You've absorbed everything, and you have challenged us to be clear and purposeful in our methods and in our design. We've provided you with the agency to act on your core values to improve people's lives. Our desire is that you use this agency to spark a lifetime filled with curiosity and to go about your life as a citizen of curiosity. Mike mentioned curiosity at the end of his talk. Acting with curiosity to learn from your patients, to exchange ideas with your colleagues, to improve systems of healthcare, and to improve the human condition. I hear in your words the kernels of humility and the desire to learn that give me great hope for the future that you will build for us. I mentioned that this was your last lecture at Geisel, but as I stand here now, I realize that I'm only acting as a mirror. I reflect your words and your values and your aspirations back to you. I share them because they inspired me, but in this moment, I feel a bit as if I've plagiarized. So for that, I ask a bit of forgiveness and latitude on this particular occasion. But I must say, if in acting as a mirror, I then know that I look at you with a sense of pride. For in your words, I recognize that you have attained a level of knowledge, of awareness, of maturity, to be a peer of our physicians and our faculty that are here. I don't know what our collective future looks like or when the tide of divisiveness in our society is going to turn. What I do know is that I can't imagine putting our future into the hands of a more capable and thoughtful group to lead than in your hands. Guided by an ethos of curiosity and focused on a pole star based on your core values, I see a future that is purposeful, it's compassionate, and altruistic, and that future is you. I feel the utmost confidence that the medical care that you'll provide and that the systems of care that you will develop will go way beyond our expectations, and that you will be able to improve our lives and the lives of your patients. So Geisel Class of 2018, I will conclude by saying on behalf of all the faculty and staff, it has been our distinct pleasure and privilege to work with each one of you to guide you through your medical education. I offer my deepest congratulations on your graduation today, and I look forward to being part of your future, and that will be the future that you build for all of us. So congratulations and good luck.